Gowling WLG advises businesses operating across the living sectors. The need to operate and deliver homes and new communities in a more sustainable way is universal. So we've developed this podcast series to explore how we live sustainably. Over the series, we'll be talking to our clients about their real-world projects and showcasing the progress and innovation that happens in the sectors each and every day. To kick off proceedings, today we're delighted to welcome Jamie Bunce, CEO of Inspired Villages Group. Welcome, Jamie. Great to have this opportunity to talk to you about this important topic.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Great. Would you like to begin perhaps by telling us a little bit about yourself and the Inspired Villages business?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jamie Bunce. I'm the CEO of Inspired Villages Group. We're an operator and developer of retirement communities. We've been working within the sector since 2008 and notably secured investment from Legal & General Capital in 2017. We've then subsequently secured it was co-investment from NatWest Group Pensions that gave us a total equity placement of 500 million, allowing us to deliver 34 villages over a 15-year joint venture, giving homes for up to 10,000 people.
Fantastic. And I understand sustainability is sort of one of the golden threads running through the business. Could you tell us a little bit about what sustainability means for Inspired Villages?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because people think about sustainability and they immediately think of, turning the heating down or doing something sort of to bring the heating down or changing that and not a lot else. And what we look at when we look at sustainability is basically the fabric first. So the first thing we look to do is how can we build a building as efficiently in terms of its carbon and overall sustainability as it possibly can. So we look at how we lay a building out, what position it is to the sun, how does that work, and get our fabric built first. Interestingly, both Legal & General and NatWest are true social impact investors. One of the reasons why we secured investment from NatWest in particular recently was because we've pledged to deliver a net zero product. And now the fabric first is the first stage of that, but the investment came in looking at first regulated energy in net zero, and that's using ground or air source heating and cooling, and then photovoltaics to enable us to deliver the bulk of energy without having to use the grid or even feeding back into the grid. So that's a sort of a first port of what we do. We're then targeting out to go operational net zero by 2025 against the government target of 2030. So we're looking to sort of bring forward the ability for us to operate the village in a net zero basis. And with that, it means us looking at how we live in the village, how we operate in the village, how we get to our villages and how we sort of bring our business up forward. And in some of that, we might need to offset, and people talk about offsetting some carbon because whatever we do, there will be some residual carbon through embedded carbon with materials being delivered from places, etc. But our take is that we want to be able to deliver that either on site or at the edge of site, but certainly linked to what we do. So for us in sustainability, that's the energy part of it. But also you've got the social part of this governance, and for us, you've got the health part of it. With holistic well-being, tackling the physical, mental, social and financial elements of it, qualitative assessments to ensure that our supply chain do the right thing in terms of employment of people and bringing forward a truly diverse workforce for the future. That, to me, is equally important in sustainability as just doing some energy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think sort of ESG and sort of this, I say the wider ESG agenda is a really interesting challenge and opportunity for the IRC sector and sort of wider senior living sector in particular, because of all those wider social benefits in addition to the sort of environmental side of things. But I think you've got your first operational net zero carbon retirement community due to open quite shortly.
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it, Dominic? Really?
Yeah, not so much.
We need to do something to make that roll better. But yes, we started and we're halfway through the build at a site down in Caddington in Bedfordshire, which is called Millfield Green, where we are using ground source through a company called Kenza. who we have a partnership with, a wonderful business, and photovoltaics in order to deliver a net zero regulated energy. We're actually, in advance of that, completing a scheme called Elderswell in Turvey, Bedfordshire, where we are using ground source currently for that, and not extended it to PV at this stage. So that is not quite net zero because we delivered that and designed that a lot earlier. But we're looking to actually say, well, how do we retrofit? How do we bring that in now? How do we make sure that our portfolio, not from Millfield Green onwards, is net zero and regulated energy, but actually every scheme. So part of our pledge is really to look at not only our future pipeline and platform, but also our existing.
Great. And you mentioned sort of partnering with the guys that are bringing in this technology. And are you looking at sort of long-term partnerships? You've obviously talked about this, the big pipeline of new sites you're looking to bring forward, and presumably getting a sort of consistent supply chains around this and innovating together is going to be quite important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blessed because our investors are the likes of Legal & General and NatWest. So they're both, as I said before, social impact investors. And I sit on a sustainability committee with Legal & General, which allows me to have a much greater knowledge bank of what's happening within a wider portfolio across the world. So I make no bounds of us wanting to lead the world in this space as a business. And in doing that, we need to then see who's doing it the best. How are they doing it? How do we learn from those people? How do we actually accelerate it? What's good about our sector, the integrated retirement community sector is a nascent sector. It's an area that people are very happy to work together for a greater good. And our residents are happy to be involved in helping support that. So we have a network of resource that we can bring into these sorts of opportunities. And the likes of Ken's, who are funded by Legal & General, are leading the way in ground source. So we then work with those. We then help to evolve the product, a bit like Oxford Photovoltaics. So another business that we're looking to see how we can accelerate learning in terms of PV. So it's an exciting sort of area, and it's one that, as we evolve and as our sector evolves, the commonality should be something that allows us to get good value for money propositions from the supply chain, and importantly, make the supply chain take ESG seriously.
Yeah. So we talk about sort of value for money. It obviously, delivering green solutions, if we call them that, does come at a cost, and we're clearly operating at a time of sort of spiraling land prices, spiraling construction costs, all pressure on the bottom line. So I guess part of the solution is who your backers are and their sort of patient capital approach and the long-term view. But how do you see that particular sort of cost challenge from sustainability?
I think across all sectors, for all types of building, we're all suffering the same challenge in terms of inflation, the difficulties to get prices fixed because contractors aren't able to unless they price significant risk into their tenders, which we'd have to accept. As I said, I think right at the start, I mean, our first view is a fabric first. We look at what are we building? How do we ensure that whatever we build has the least effect on the planet? And how do we lay out a building, and what materials do we use in order to deliver that? We then look at who's delivering that and how sustainable is their agenda. So our supply chain, to make sure that we can sort of influence the supply chain to do a little bit. So it's not everyone needs to do everything, but if everyone does something, then it just gets naturally better. We then sort of drive those elements forward across our businesses, and then look at a long-term view. So as a retirement community operator, you are an operator of an asset. We don't suffer the same challenges as a developer who will build something, sell it, and then move on to the next thing. Our life cycles go through sort of 2.5 sort of people's journeys. So a typical apartment for us would be selling 2.5 times through a life cycle that we would look at, and therefore we should be building our buildings with that in mind, and then ensuring that as this sector evolves and as green asset becomes principally more valuable, that we've actually delivered that value at the start of the process instead of having to retrofit halfway through a process. So it's really having a longer term view and a responsible view. And yes, your capex could be higher, but actually the long-term value, and value is not necessarily just a financial value, but actually a societal value, should deliver the similar sort of results.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I think it seems pretty logical that if you're equipping these schemes, well, now this is going to affect resale values, it's going to affect event fees. So it's a virtuous circle.
Yeah, you can't look at it too narrow. I think that it's now time for the likes of what's exciting about people who will be listening to this podcast, are people in a position of influence. And I would say that, if there's a will, you'll find a way. If there isn't, you will find an excuse. And I've said that a number of times. And actually, I see that within the world of ESG and the way that people are looking at it. And because it's a little difficult, because they might have to think a little bit more about building something, then it becomes into I'll just find an excuse. I'll just build it to the minimum standards I possibly can. I'll worry about it later. Well, that's not the way to approach true sustainability. We all have a responsibility now, I think, to leave this planet in a better place than when we joined it. Absolutely need to do that. And if we do that, and as leaders of businesses, we take that seriously, we will make the significant changes that need to be made and not keep making excuses about it just because it's just a little bit more difficult.
Just picking up on that, sort of leaving the planet in a better place. How important do you think sustainability is for your residents? Are they embracing this? Is there a big sort of learning journey for them, as there is, I guess, for the rest of us?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, I find it fascinating actually that and I think COVID has actually channeled people's minds more. So pre-COVID, everyone was just getting on with life. Everyone then had a period of time when they're locked away and they reevaluated what they were doing, their interactions with others and their responsibilities and the like. And we found that a number of residents now are starting to sort of not only sort of think and talk about climate crisis and changes and how they're going to leave the planet for their grandchildren and their grandchildren's grandchildren, but seeing what they can do to help. So we have across our business, we have sustainability committees and energy committees within our residents. So from my view, that's a free resource. And yes, these people, they have an agenda and they want to be able to deliver something for themselves, maybe in the short term, in terms of reduced in energy costs or something. But actually, and a very engaged person or group of people is very powerful. And therefore, from our perspective at Inspired, we want to channel that. So if somebody says, I want to get involved in this, absolutely get involved in it, because we have a common goal. We want to be able to deliver a better future. It's not an adversarial sort of handoff type situation. This is more about us sort of bringing the best brains that are around and engaged and enthused people who want to try and find a way of doing something, who have more time on their hands, in essence, into our thinking, to help us drive the significant changes we are. So we're seeing a greater degree. And actually, are people willing to pay more for a green product? Well, they're definitely willing to pay more for something when they haven't got the risk of large increases in utility costs. So people will look for certainty. The reality is our residents are generally on fixed income. They generally have income through pensions that would be linked to CPI generally, or investments that have various other index linking. And there is a mismatch between CPI and utilities. So for a CPI increase, utilities would attract half of that. So there's a mismatch. So on a selfish short-term view, they're saying, well, what can we do? What is there? And actually then that channels that sort of resource for people to say, actually, come on, get involved with something bigger. Be part of the legacy. Be part of actually driving the change. Be part of the journey and know that you've been part of that journey. And we're seeing more people wanting to engage on that front. So it's early stages, but I'd say that we're seeing that revolution start of people really wanting to make a difference.
That's good to hear. I suppose sort of another facet of it is most of the residents we talk about are your obviously existing residents in existing schemes, which weren't perhaps built to these sort of net zero standards just because of timing. So what are you doing about improving sustainability for those schemes?
Well, I mean, us like others, we're very early on our journey of the built environment. So we have 6 operating villages, another 2 coming over to opening in the next few months. And of all of those, they're already part on their way, selfishly. So we have ground source, air source heating on 4 of them, and district heating on 3 of them, and ground source on the other. So our move to net zero is not as large as what it could be for others. So I'd have to take into account that it's not, it's a bit easier for us. So we're making an assessment of what can we do on our existing portfolio in order to create our business to be a truly net zero business. So as I was reading about Google and how they're looking to sort of pay back the carbon that they've used, and we're trying to think, well, can we do that? Can we actually look at what carbon we've used since our formation in a business and then try and calculate that and see what we do? And we know some of our competitors are looking to do something similar. And I think us all trying to do something, will ultimately get us all doing everything, if you know what I mean. So for me, it's a case of ensuring that we don't just sort of ignore our existing portfolio. We think hard about what we do, and we work with our investors who may revalue the asset in a different way if it is more green than if it isn't, So it's how does that work? How does the obligation of retrofit onto the long-term property costs affect those that don't do it? Because at the end of the day, we've all going to be having to do our bit at some point. So why don't we just be in control of that and do it, at the right time, like now?
Yeah, and with sort of the, I guess, embodied carbon in new construction, as well as the sort of, I guess, the legacy portfolio, what role do you think carbon offsetting has to play for you? How will that play out?
Well, I'm not greenwashing, as some people call it. There is carbon offsetting where you're offsetting within the sort of area of your scheme, or just to edge you it. We've got a scheme where we're looking to put PV on an adjacent site and then give the occupier of that adjacent site the benefit of free energy as part of the transaction. But that allows us to sort of to balance and deal with that under the same sort of blanket of the site. And we're lucky because our schemes are generally on edge of a conurbation or into rural, so we have a bit more space. So we're not got the same challenges as a city centre. So that poses a different challenge for others that we don't have. The offsetting of sort of investing in a forest in California is not something we'd be considering. I don't think something you can do, but you are hearing others that are suggesting that type of thing.
Okay. And again, this sort of monitoring and measuring performance, it is a very, very challenging and difficult thing to do, and there's many sets of measures, and it's very difficult to, I guess, compare apples with apples. But to what extent do you think the senior living sector, integrated retirement communities in particular, can and should be doing more to try and come up with some sort of standard forms of measure of sustainability and wider ESG performance?
Well, I think, there's a body, the Associated Retirement Community Operators, ARCO. So anybody that's interested, that knows the sector, or anyone thinking about the sector, that's the sort of the body that links lots of us together. And that's a great sort of forum of collaboration from my experience. It's one where people go into meetings or sessions with a view of trying to get a combined out for it, if that's the right word of saying is. And I see that if we were to actually come together as a body, look at those criteria, and maybe a few of us do a bit more of the heavy lifting. So whilst we have a network, as I've said, with the likes of LNG Sustainability Committee and NatWest with their wider portfolios, where we can actually look at what others are doing and then bring some others along with us. So some other operators that might not have that bandwidth that we have, work with us through ARCO to create that standard, and a standard that we know we can all deliver and we all accept, and we all sort of come in this together, and then that steps us on. And as the explosion of new schemes come forward in the next few years, which we know it will, linked to the sort of demography change of the over 65s and importantly the over 80s doubling, then if we've set the foundations right now, and we've done it through the body of ARCO, so we're actually all joined in, so it's not desperate sort of strategies from different bodies, with some of us then helping the more smaller, owner-occupier, MD businesses, then we're delivering proper change, Dominic, proper change, and that's what we should be doing. So for me, it's coming together, possibly through ARCO. And then again, engaging with the government on the new task force, some really positive steps coming forward. The task force probably shouldn't just look at planning reform. They should look at setting the tone, setting the standards, showcasing the UK as the leader of the world.
Okay, it feels to me as though you are setting the tone. Your enthusiasm for this subject is sort of quite infectious, I think. So if we can sort of end with some future gazing, you've got this ambitious plan to, I guess, grow the portfolio over the next few years, and say in a decade's time, all these schemes will be mature and operational. So from that sort of sustainability perspective, what will good look like for you in 10 years' time in terms of the Inspired Villages portfolio?
So good for us would be for us to have created a legacy that's transforming the way that people view aging, for starters. So that would be the way, and that's a legacy in a built form, and also using technology to help drive different outcomes for people. So we talk about this being the best years of your life. So we want people living with Inspired Villages to have the best years of their lives. So this should be a time when they're carefree as they were as a student, except they've got a bit of something behind them and life lessons behind them, so they can have a similar sort of experience, but as they get older. We also then should sort of look at how do we drive better outcomes for people who may never live in a setting, people that sort of 90% of people who will always absolutely want to live in their own home. Well, how do we ensure that they live better for longer? How do we ensure that we can link back in to create a healthier society? So we reduce down the number of falls. We actually create a country that is so much more focused on physical, mental, social, financial well-being. How do we let technology drive that decision? So no matter where the family live in the world, the grandparent is in charge of the family again. And doing that via technology, walking 10 steps, to the grandchild who doesn't switch off the Xbox until he runs a mile, wherever they are in the world. We need to sort of think really laterally about what we do to society. And in 10 years' time, if you, Dominic, and anyone listening onto this feel like you've done your bit, and you've been part of that, you've helped create a legacy of change. I mean, how cool is that? That's just like it's better than anything you could think of doing. If you've sat there and think, I've had a part to play in that, and that's what I think we need to be thinking. Yeah.
You've laid down the challenge. So that seems like the perfect note for us to end on today. So thank you so much, Jamie, for joining us on the How We Live Sustainably podcast.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.